Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from Annie News. We got another content video for Solo Leveling Season 2, Episode 3, and my god, this was class. This was so good. This is awesome. Mystery and intrigue. I'm so glad I didn't read the manhwa. I kind of... I probably will do, because I've seen that the pictures and the drawing is just absolutely sick. But, like, the animation on Season 2, I feel like they've stepped it up. Do you know what I mean? Like, a few people were complaining about the animation in Season 1. It was still good, but, like, I feel like they've really stepped it up in this season. And everything is just really, really cool. So I'm really intrigued, always very intrigued to see what has been cut, but what's been added, because that's what the beauty of this season is. Like, they seem to be adding more stuff to change the narrative slightly, like with the mum stuff and everything, which is cool. He's like trying to like save her and everything, and the whole reason to go into the dungeon with the Cerberus thing. But I'm also intrigued with what was added with this whole new guy that was brought in, is claiming to be like, trapped in this like dungeon for so many years, and then I think he mentioned that he was related to Sung Jin Woo, and at the end he's beat the guy. Oh, right. Anyway, let's just. I loved it. Let's get into it.
Listen, if they're gonna skip all this and give us this instead, then I guess in the end we're coming out at about even.
Where's God?
It also gives me a lot to talk about, so if you want to see the full extent of Sung's power leveling in the Tower Dungeon, the hectic inter-guild politics going on in the background, then the expansion of the world to a more international level, stick around because we'll be covering all that and more.
Sick.
It's everything the anime left out from the novel and manhwa. Let's get started. Episode 15. Still a long way to go. Covering chapters 56 to 61 from the manhwa and chapters 65 to 75 from the novel.
Wow, that's quite a few more chapters than they normally cover, but okay.
To start things off right after the Red Gate, there was a whole cutscene where Miss Park was debriefing with Beck and Dawn. She was basically describing everything she saw as best as she could remember.
Oh, right, because she's in the car with the guy at the end of the episode, isn't she? So, right, okay.
Things like how Sung would do push-ups in the middle of the night, all the way to his ability to use spatial magic and his conflict with Kim. Most importantly was his ability to control dozens of summons, but the most unbelievable thing was the fact that he cleared this Red Gate all by himself. Yes, he did have his summons to help him, but as soldiers deriving from his very own skill set, it was still technically him doing the dungeon solo. This was a feat truly unfathomable, since even for an S-rank hunter like himself, Beck knew on his own all he could do was just barely solo a B-rank dungeon. It was news that all but confirmed that Sung had reawakened, and with an incredibly rare skill on top of that.
Yeah, like, I don't think this is a thing that anyone else can do, is it?
It was already rare for a hunter to control any summons, so to
Right.
control 10s of them, well, that was...
Oh, so they can, but right, okay, not to this extreme.
As I said, unbelievable. It was actually a skill no one thought to have even been possible. Not Beck or his extensive connection to hunters across the globe either. This then begs the question of how much money Sung is worth, which, as unthinkable as it was to consider, his value would only skyrocket the moment he was reassessed properly.
Oh, yeah, imagine. Oh, but then would it even come up? I feel like he's on a completely different system, if you know what I mean. I feel like he's in like, yeah, he is in like a video game scenario, like that no one else is. Like, no one else can level up, so does he even register? That was meant to be clickplay.
That being the case, Beck knew he needed to recruit Sung before that. It was the only way to recoup their losses from the Red Gate. It was here Miss Park would express her interest in joining their efforts, since as the person who spent the most time with Sung, she believed her familiarity would prove useful. I mean, she did after all spend a week with him. She was also by conventional standards quite attractive, so Beck and Dawn figured that that could come into play as well.
Isn't it longer in their terms though? Wasn't the time different over in the gate? Am I wrong on that? I'm sure there was a. I don't like saying stuff like this because I'm always wrong.
Her only request in return was to be able to be in his raid party every single time, no matter what. Reason being that her time in the Red Gate showed her just how powerless she really was. She had essentially learned the lesson that Sung was trying to teach Song Yi. As much as that fear made her want to run away, though, Miss Park didn't want to give up all the luxuries that came with being a B-rank hunter.
Well, you won't want to, like the money. There was a line in a song there, but I can't think of
The
it.
money and societal benefits were just too great to pass up. Not to mention all the public recognition, too. So, What better way to remove the high-risk factor making her ideal job so dangerous than to do raids with the man who could solo a red gate?
Yeah.
Just as how he kept his promise to Song Yi, Miss Park wanted that same promise to be made to her. Just thinking about it made her heart flutter. So, this was how Miss Park ended up working with On, since at the end of the day, the request wasn't all that difficult. Beck would then ask On for Sung's phone number, but not for the reason that you might think. You see, where On believed Beck was going to rush things and force Sung away from the guild, he instead stated it was only to thank Sung properly. After thinking more about what Sung had done for them, Beck realized Sung didn't just save the lives of his guildmates. He had also ensured the guild's honor wasn't tarnished with a dungeon break. So, Sung had saved their public image from some very harsh criticism, and that made Beck realize just how regretful his actions were here.
Oh, he's like, I should not have been aggressive.
It was a good enough
I should have been a nice man.
reason for On to give Beck Sung's number, but right as he was about to, he would pause because Miss Park was trying to copy it herself. Whether she succeeded or not is unknown, but it is implied that she may have gotten her hands on it.
Cheeky bitch.
This brings us now to a scene with the Hunters Guild, where Choi would be now learning of the Redgate incident himself. How did he come across such confidential information? Well, it was standard practice for every guild to have one or two informants within the association.
Right.
It was by far the best way to stay ahead of the competition. Now, I won't dive too deep into the reaction to the peculiar information that was leaked to them, but the gist is that they knew the White Tiger Guild was hiding something. I mean, even the association knew they were as well. The only reason the association didn't probe further was because the fault of the Redgate was solely theirs. It would be far too bold to demand information for an incident that they caused in the first place. Either way, the ranks of the survivors who made it out the Redgate made it abundantly clear that there was someone else present. Someone powerful the White Tiger Guild was trying to hide. This was a person Choi knew he needed to recruit himself, but unless he knew who that person was, Choi was unfortunately stuck.
I must have them at any cost. Once I know their name.
That being the case, Choi figured the best way to find out who this person was to make the situation as chaotic as possible. He would leak the Redgate incident to the media, then force the White Tiger Guild into a situation where hiding the truth just wasn't possible anymore.
Oh my god, so much was left out. This is insane.
A relentless bombardment from the media was sure to uncover any secrets that they were hiding.
This is so much.
Switching over to the dungeon with Jinho now, at this point, Sung was level 60. Him and his shadows could clear a C-rank dungeon in no time at all, so
Nice.
it was decided 4 more raids would be done today, while the last 5 would be completed tomorrow. That's when their dinner would be had too, bringing an end to what Sung believed was a relationship built on pure transaction.
Oh, so he went in thinking, we're done. And he is like, you don't need to leave me though. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be so fucking much of a burden. He's like, mate, I want to be friends. I'll be your bro.
Jinho's heartfelt spiel made it clear it wasn't, but for the longest time, Sung didn't even think that he was going to get the building out of it.
Oh.
To him, that was just a bonus if he did. The only thing that mattered during were his levels. It was after gaining them that Sung saw zero need to continue the relationship, but Jinho's confession changed that. The two would then bond over their conversation, all while an interesting news report would be going on in the background. It was a press conference with Beck, showing him trying his best to limit the amount of information that got out about the Redgate. It seems Choi's plan got him right where he wanted him, and Beck was struggling to keep up with it all.
Right.
The most he could do was deny any interviews to the survivors of the Redgate. That, and keep any questions of a mystery person to a minimum. Moving on to the incident in America now, it turns out not a single monster was present in the A-rank dungeon Ilhuan was found in. The reason the gate emitted such high magical energy then was because Ilhuan's presence alone emitted an amount exceeding an A-rank dungeon.
Oh my god, this guy's a beast.
His aura was stronger than that of the entire dungeon combined.
Oh my fucking god.
An unprecedented level of power for any person.
Yo, this guy is something else. Oh my god, I'm so intrigued. Ah!
America's reaction to him was actually fairly standard then, since if this was a monster feigning the memories of a human, then the risk he posed was enough to endanger all of Washington.
Makes sense.
That's when Huang Dong-su would come in to interrogate, followed by a bit of backstory behind why he's so sadistic. You see, after losing his parents in a dungeon break many, many years ago, all he had was his older brother. When he awakened
Oh,
as an S rank sometime after, Huang Dongsu knew this was his opportunity to get revenge.
yeah.
He could use his power to kill as many monsters as he wanted. This is why his glare hair is much more intense than usual, since everything aside from Ilhuan's appearance clearly indicated that he was a monster. Like, even if you set aside the fact that he came from a dungeon, the magic energy Ilhuan emitted was identical to one.
The ring on his chain is something as well, because I was watching the OP to this episode and I was like, that's very prominent, so it's got something to do with stuff.
It was despite all that, though, that Huang's first question would actually be a personal one. It was likely for the sake of his brother, since what he wanted to know was if it was possible for other people to return from the dungeon.
Oh.
This was unfortunately a question Ilhuan could only shake his head to, since the reason he came back was very specific. He didn't explain how that was, but he did make it clear for other hunters it wouldn't be possible. Now, when asked what exactly this great calamity was, Ilhuan refused to go into specifics about it. The only thing he could say was that he alone was strong enough to stop it. It was a confident statement which would lead Huang to ask just how strong he was.
Oh, so this is... Oh, man, so much was left out of this episode. So he's like, dude, this calamity's coming. I can stop it. It's not like... oh, what the... Whoa.
Ilhuan could only agree that he did have power, but couldn't describe more other than the fact that he had other factors working in his favor too. So, while this was confidence which went to mildly infuriate Huang, Ilhuan's hunter history confirmed it. His track record in the dungeons was fairly impressive despite there not being a ranking system back then.
Oh.
Looking deeper into his file revealed who Ilhuan's family was, and that led to the whole fight we saw in the anime.
Well, we didn't really see, but yeah.
The one thing you do need to remember, though, is that in the novels, Huang hasn't yet left for Korea. That being the case, he doesn't know Sung was trapped in a red gate, and he doesn't imply Sung is dead already.
Oh. Oh!
What he does imply is that he's going to kill Sung. A message Ilhuan obviously didn't take too kindly.
Right, and that's why the fight
Switching back
happened.
to the restaurant, Sung would notice the Red Gate incident was all over the news now. It was that and the identity of the mysterious person who allegedly beat it. It was pretty crazy to see how many people were trying to find information on him, but Sung honestly didn't really care anymore. If they did, then he wouldn't be as bothered as you might think. Reason being that at this point he'd already reached the level he was striving for. He had only hid his abilities before to keep them from being taken advantage of. Now that he could hold his own, Sung didn't care who it was that knew about him now. Sung would then give Jinho an elixir to sober him up, part ways at the restaurant, then prep himself for his week-long adventure in the tower dungeon.
Right.
Fast forward past some new scenes for sister leveling, and
Oh, God, he's seen it as well, then. Sister Living's hilarious. As soon as I seen this scene, I was like, this is just getting added into it. Oh, my God.
that's when we get to a cutscene involving him getting into the
That's so
dungeon.
funny.
You see, where before it was night and there weren't that many people, now it was daytime and people were everywhere. That being the case, it would be a bit weird for Sung to just open up a portal and disappear right in front of them. So, Sung would use his stealth skill, shimmy to a place a bit more discreet, bump into a few people along the way, then make his way in completely unnoticed. Something Sung had noticed himself, though, was that despite making physical contact with several people, not a single person noticed he was there.
Oh, wow. God damn, that's some stealth.
Stealth had made him imperceptible to even touch.
Yo.
It's from this that Sung now understood why high-level assassin hunters needed to be closely monitored, since stealth skills like this were very easily abusable.
Yeah, that's
Now,
crazy.
it was upon re-entry into the tower dungeon that the lack of another Cerberus revealed this was a dungeon that operated a bit differently.
Yeah, because as soon as he went in, I was like, whoa, Cerberus, let's go. And then it's just, no.
Whereas in the instance dungeons monsters respawned, it seemed that here they didn't. So whatever this was, it was clear it was going to be something new for Sung. A fact further indicated by the hefty rewards waiting for him at the end of it. When Sung saw what could be earned from the quest alone, the plus 20 in bonus stats were enough to make the entire thing worth it.
I love how it's a quest to save his mom. Like, it's crazy. Sorry, but like, 5 years ago today, my mother died. And if I had this option, I'd be all in there.
It was a heaven-sent gift he planned to put straight into intelligence, a means to solve his mana problems.
Yeah, this was sick. He's being
The
clever.
undisclosed reward was sure to be good too, but any single item from the shop provided value in the billions.
Yeah, and he hasn't had the undisclosed reward for a while, so that was cool to see.
With items there worth hundreds of billions
2
in gold,
billion
his
G.
measly
4 billion
430,000 didn't seem
G.
like
Get
that
the
much of a problem
G's.
anymore. Of course, the requirement to earn these was going to be tough, since 10,000 demon souls would be
10,000.
lengthy even with his army of 50 shadow soldiers. Fortunately, failure would just mean he'd only lost time, so in comparison to the other quests where failure meant death, this was much more lenient than those. Now,
Excuse me.
one last difference that needs to be noted is the addition of an experience counter telling him how much XP he needs to level up. The counter only existed within the dungeon itself, but it did make it easy to keep track of how fast he was leveling. It was while Sung was familiarizing himself with the dungeon that a post-interview scene would be shown with Beck. He had just finished his run with the press and was now on the receiving end of a phone call from an S-rank hunter in Japan. It was the retired Korean hunter Min. He was in Japan due to their request, specifically because they were looking for someone who participated in the Jeju raids. As for why, well, that's because an ant with wings washed up on their shore. This is where the involvement of other nations starts to become more prevalent, bringing into question how the anime is going to portray it.
Right, so because they did mention why are we not talking about the flying ants thing, didn't they? Yeah, pretty sure. Because I love how, like, so obviously watching the cut content from season 1, blah, 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 this is a thing, big event that happened where they went to this island, fought the ants, and this was like the opening to season 1, making it like seem like a big deal. I feel like this is something something that we're looking forward to, but then at the same time, then when this guy coming in, where it's like, oh, it's like so cool.
I mean, they've already introduced the mutated ant in the anime, so
Yeah.
technically this whole scene isn't even needed. That said, I'd be very surprised if they cut out all the Japan stuff completely. Now, the anime skipped through quite a few of the lower floors, but to give an idea of what Sung was going through, he was extremely ecstatic since this was the most efficient level farm since the subway dungeon.
Nice, yeah.
Not only
He's
was he
loving it.
getting experience, but also plenty of item drops too. There was numerous loot that could be sold to the store for hundreds of thousands of gold apiece. Initially, he wasn't very sure where to go, but after seeing the Pillar of Light in the distance, Sung hopped on Tank
That's
and
where
rode
we
him all the way
go.
there.
And I love how the bear was like, I'm going through him. Fuck him. Let's go. Ugh. And he's like, I'll call you Tank.
As for why he chose the name Tank, it was simply because the bear was as big as a tank.
Yeah, he's a tank. He's piling through.
It was once at the Pillar of Light that the whole thing was revealed to be just one giant magical elevator.
Yeah,
Sung could
makes
access
sense.
any floor from it, so long as he used a permit to unlock it.
Ah, right. So, right, okay, cool.
It made it so whether it was the 100th or first floor, every floor was connected by the same Pillar of Light. So, these lower floors granted him levels far faster than the C-rank dungeons, since where 9 C-rank dungeons were required to gain just 1 level, only 4 hours here gained him the same. He was essentially climbing to the upper echelons of the S-rank now. How did Sung know he was at the S-rank? Well, when he met Beck, he knew right then and there that he had just barely reached the S-rank. He wouldn't have been able to brush him off like this if he hadn't. 2 days of grinding got him to floor 27, where the demons now gave 300 XP apiece, and his soul count was sitting at 2100.
Damn, I love this. Like, obviously with the anime, when it's trying to go through so much, it can't go through all these details. So these videos are so cool to watch, to see
He was
it.
also at level 67, so to say he was satisfied with his growth would be an understatement. It was by now that Sung had noticed each floor was modeled after a different city too, but with the destruction getting worse the higher he got, it became increasingly difficult to recognize which city it was.
Do you reckon this is like... How am I trying to say this? So, a vision of the future to come for our world? You know, with this great calamity that the other guys come in saying, like, is he seeing what is potentially happening to us? Is that the way it works?
Like, here on the 27th, the whole thing just looked like it had been carpet bombed. There was no day or night cycle either, so Sung could only rely on his watch to keep time. He would usually stop his grind at around 11 PM or so, this time dazing off to sleep while wishing Jinho luck with his negotiations. Both the novel and manhwa portray this conversation a bit differently, since the way Jinho's dad found out about Sung was actually through the direct testimony of a Redgate survivor.
Oh.
It's how Jinho found out Sung was involved in it too. After hearing all those news broadcasts regarding this mystery person, Jinho finally pieced together that that mystery person was Sung. This led Jinho to believe his negotiations were over, since after hearing the hunter describe just how powerful Sung was, there was no doubt his dad would think he cheated. His dad's reaction was actually the opposite though, since he was just happy his son went into the dungeon with a plan.
Yeah, like, he was clever with it. He went in with someone he knew was capable and was going to get the job done. He went in there knowing he'd get it done.
It was also incredibly convenient that a man so useful to him just so happened to be in arm's reach now. All of it turned out to be a shock, especially the response in which Jinho couldn't confidently say he could recruit Sung. Unlike how in the anime he did, here he could only say that he would try. It was a response that really resonated with his dad, since there would be no meaning to the challenge if it was too easy.
Right.
In the end, his dad couldn't help but smile, since the son he previously thought was just a kitten turned out to be a tiger cub after all.
Hell yeah, he's going there. He's got his claws. They're coming out. Give him the guilt.
Jinho would be so daring. So the smile was a rare occurrence for the man known across Korea as Poker Face, famed for never showing any emotion whatsoever. In the manhwa, an additional challenge was given to Jinho alongside this, since the guild would only be his if he could recruit Sung before his father could recruit his own S ranks. We already know he was going for Cha, but what we don't see is that he's also going for Min, the retired hunter who Jinho's father believes to be coming out of retirement. Since he had retired due to failing all 3 of the Jeju raid attempts before, it was more than likely that he would return for the 4th.
Right.
So, with another raid likely happening in a few months, Jinho's dad figured he might like to do so as the leader of his own guild. It made this essentially a race to see who would come first. Would Cha or Min succumb to the grand offer presented to them, or would Jinho be able to pull Sung before that? The loser gives up the guild to the winner. Switching back to the dungeon, and Sung would be at floor 50 now. He was 4,388 souls into his quest, and another 2 levels higher at 69. Though the levels were coming a bit slower now, the single day spent acquiring this was still far faster than anything he'd been doing before. A copious amount of items were dropping as well, all of which he was collecting and selling to the store immediately after. Where 3 days ago he was only at 430,000 gold, now he was sitting at 914 million.
Yo.
Soon he could buy whatever S-rank weapon and armor he wanted. This brings us to the fight with Vulcan, which, while for the most part was the same, a couple details need to be explained to provide better context.
Okay, yeah, because he did just seem to just absolutely just punch the shit out of the guy.
Was actually blocked by Iron during Vulcan's initial assault.
Oh, so Iron didn't throw the shield over.
But the attack had shattered both his arms in the process.
Oh.
It was a good contrast to show how strong Sung is in comparison to his shadows.
Whoa! Oh, so he did use shield. Oh my god, that looks amazing.
All of Vulcan's attacks. This was with Vulcan's
right. So Iron jumped. Right. Okay.
Skill increasing all his stats by 50% too. So as far as powerful bosses go, this one was probably one of Sung's toughest.
It reminded me of something from Doom.
It just didn't seem that way because he's leveled up so much. When Vulcan predicted Sung's attack here, it was actually a pure gamble to use Ruler's Reach in response.
Whoa, that looks so sick. The fucking drawing on these is absolutely fantastic, man. I love it.
Whereas the only other option was to just take the hit head on, Sung hoped Ruler's Touch would absorb some of the recoil and soften the blow. It was a clever way of getting out of an otherwise undodgeable situation.
Oh man, I love it. It's so sick.
In the end, it wasn't one attack that killed Vulcan, but rather a series of consecutive fatal strikes after this one. There was genuine fear in Vulcan's eyes as it happened, because the bug he'd just been hunting with excitement had now turned the tables on him. The end result was 72 souls and 150k experience, resulting in a whole 2 levels just from that.
Nice.
The drops were exactly as we saw as well, so with the errands giving plus 20 to strength and plus 20 to health, Sung was ecstatic at what was pretty much 8 level ups worth of stats. There was a funny cutscene right after this though, involving Igris and how he's constantly collecting demon heads and presenting it to him. Sung only saw this as a minor annoyance, but the bigger annoyance was the fact that Iron was trying to copy him.
Ha! That's so cool.
Somehow, when no one was looking, Iron had cut off Vulcan's head and dragged it to Sung as well. It wasn't even his kill to begin with, but because Igris was doing it, Iron felt he had to do it better.
Oh, we are missing out on a bit of personality from the shadows then, but oh well.
Now, aside from another cutscene where Sung tests the Orb of Avarice, that's pretty much it for this episode. So, all in all, it was quite a lot. Some big
That was
scenes,
a lot.
some small scenes, but each building the world and characters into something more.
Yeah.
There was actually quite a bit more than I thought there would be. So, let me know what you think down in the comments, and if you liked what you saw, then be sure to like
Love
and
it.
subscribe. Until next time, though.
Ciao. Damn, so much was left out. I love checking these out. It's like, 'cause I love that. I love solo leveling. The anime's so sick, and then it's like, what else was there? So, go check Annie News out. Subscribe. Like, and thanks for watching.